Good afternoon. I'm on Court Road at Newtownards, and I have been badly caught out by the rain, but hopefully it might dry up. There's a bit of blue sky over there, and I was talking to my friend Billy McCutcheon, who services my bike down the Ormo Road. And he mentioned that there's an old building here in Newtownards, and I'm out to video this old building. Don't know when it dates from, but it certainly was here in 1911, which is over 100 years ago. And on Court Road, actually, there's quite a number of houses would be pre-1900, Victorian or Edwardian. But this certainly is. This is what we both believe to be one of the last remaining standing RIC barracks. RIC standing for Royal Irish Constabulary, or the Irish Constabulary as they were probably better known. And they operated in the whole of Ireland, because Ireland was under British rule then. The whole of Ireland was under British rule. The north of Ireland is still under British rule, northern 6 counties. And this was the Newtownards headquarters of the RIC. RIC, as I said, operated from 1822 right through to 1922 for 100 years. Now the Southern Police Force is known as the Garda Síochána, or Guardians of Peace, and the Northern Police Force was known as the Royal Ulster Constabulary, but they're now known as the PSNI. The RIC at that time was made up of 75% Catholics and 25% Protestant. But it has to be said that the ruling hierarchy, the chief officers in the RIC, the majority of them were Protestant, which wasn't right, but that's the way it was. And they were an armed force. There was no women in them. Whenever they started off, there was about 8,000 of them. In 1841 there was 8,600 men. So they were an armed force, but normally they didn't carry arms for many. On most occasions they didn't carry arms, but unfortunately there was a lot of times of strife in Ireland at that time, those 100 years, and there was agrarian unrest, would you believe? There was nationalist unrest, there was sectarian riots, and there was trade union unrest. And the RIC had to deal with it all, whether they wanted to or not. They wore a dark green uniform with black buttons, and they looked quite military in makeup, and their bases were known as barracks, so that extended the sort of military thought. However, they didn't use military ranking. There was constables and inspectors and all the rest of it. In the 1850s, unfortunately they fell out of favour with the majority of the nationalist population, because they were enforcing evictions. English land owners who were absentee landowners. The poor Catholic population in particular couldn't pay their rent, so they were duly chucked off the properties and thrown out of their houses, and it was despicable. But this is what happened, and the RIC enforced that. In 1901 there was 1,600 RIC barracks with approximately 11,000 constables, and when Ireland became far more political, the rise of Sinn Féin, you know, from the 16 Rising and all the rest of it, there was a demand for independence. The RIC at that time, 1918, was 17,000 police, but they were being constantly attacked by IRA elements. Between 1919 and 1921, 513 RIC members were killed, shot, bombed, whatever, and there were 682 that were badly wounded. So the Sinn Féin and the IRA were pressing for Irish independence, and the attacks ramped up with threats and intimidation, and a lot of the Catholic officers resigned because they were frightened for their families. In 1920, the Black and Tans were brought over to supplement the falling numbers of RIC, well, you can read about them for yourselves. 1922, the RIC was disbanded, and they became the Garda Síochána, as I said, or the Guards in the south, and the RUC in the north. And as you can see, this is quite a substantial building. Made of sandstone, local sandstone from Scrabo, and it has stood the test of time. Not sure whether it was, you know, was it ever used as an RUC station? I just don't know. But it runs back there, and unfortunately I can't get in. But that's the way it goes. Substantial gateway as well. And this is interesting. Whenever the RIC disbanded in 1922, in the north, 1,330 guys transferred from the RIC into the RUC, and throughout and that made the RUC at that time 21% Catholic. But in the south, only 13 RIC men transferred in the whole of the south to the Guards. Most of them retired, or many of them retired. Others, faced with threats and reprisals, got offside. They emigrated to places like Canada, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, and indeed Rhodesia, where they joined the police forces there. And many of them ended up in high positions. And interestingly, some of those RIC men joined the Palestine Gendarmerie. I find that fascinating. So, is this the last remaining RIC barracks in the whole of Ireland? I suspect, and it's just beside Wardens here, I suspect, you know, that it is. There's no insignia or anything else up to tell you what this building was, which is a wee bit disappointing. But here we have decaying living history right on your doorstep, and this is, as I say, a very substantial building, and it has stood the test of time, with buddleia growing out the top guttering.